Good morning to you all. This is the story of two plastic buckets. And it's the story really of what's happening in our world today and why there is so much throwaway mentality. And it's really not just a throwaway mentality, but a very deliberate plan, if you like, of the powers that be. A plan that's instigated by the corporations, and why I so totally reject the corporate mentality. So this is the story of two buckets, and I'll start with the green one. No, I won't actually. I'll ask you a question. Which of these two buckets do you think is the oldest? The oldest bucket. We've got a green one here. We've got a blue one. Have a close look. The blue one is on its last legs. It's just falling apart. Look at this. It's literally falling apart. The handles broke off. It became very brittle. The blue bucket is less than 2 years old, and you can see the disintegration on it for no apparent reason. It's only when you look at the green bucket, which is about 14, well, it's been 14 years since I found this, and I actually found it shortly after I bought Bealtaine Cottage in the 3 acres and started the Bealtaine project. And I was almost like a professional scavenger and forager because I had no money. All my financial resources were used up in securing this property in the 3 acres. And so I would go out foraging. And one of the things that I did buy before the money all dried up was a trailer. So I had an old Volkswagen Polo with a tow bar, and I got a trailer. So I would go off on various expeditions, just foraging for anything I could get. Wood and logs and stones and old bits and pieces on building sites. And this green bucket I found dumped with a whole heap of other stuff in a Sitka spruce forestry about 4 miles from here. And I thought, great, great, there's a container, I can use that. And I can tell you I've been using it ever since. Now, it doesn't have any breakages on it. The handles are still intact. There's no splits on it. This bucket has been outdoors, more or less, since the day I found it. So, in Bealtaine Cottage terms, it's 14 years old. The likelihood is it's a bit older than that. So it could be anything up to 18 or 20 years old, because it was dumped. What really disturbs me is that these plastic buckets, which line the shelves of all the big stores, are breaking. They're falling apart. They are created with a built-in obsolescence. I think it's quite deliberate. I don't think that the actual plastic mix has differed that much. Maybe it has differed a little bit, but I think that there's a deliberate plan to make anything that you buy have a limited lifespan, a very, very limited lifespan. It's not unlike what they're doing to the human population in terms of the food. Because most people now in the Western world are eating processed food. And that processed food is dragging them down. dragging them down. It's making them not just ill, but seriously ill. So the whole scheme of things is being planned with sort of a built-in obsolescence, not just for material goods, but for human beings. I find it very, very disturbing. I've been meaning to do this video actually for quite some time, because you see the green bucket I had over in the polytunnel for a little while with earth in it, and before that it was near the compost heap and it was just filled with water. So it's been kind of, you know, chucked around a bit. It hasn't been looked after, yet it's still here and it's still perfect. Perfect. And that blue yolk over there is literally on its last legs. I use it just to put the chippings in, so I put it underneath the shredder, and I'll try to get as much use out of it as I can. But it's a very disturbing insight into the world that we live in today, because we're not just doing, we're not just kind of doing battle with the corporations who want to frack the life out of Mother Earth, who want to drill in the Arctic, and all the things around that, you know, overfish the oceans. I mean, I read today that there's a Chinese company is now fishing off the coast of Africa, where the native populations would normally get a lot of their food from, and they've set up big fertilizer factories in Africa along the coast to process this fish, to turn it into not fertilizer, feed, to turn it into feed for pig factories in Europe. And you want to know where your meat comes from? Dodgeville. Probably the dodgiest food you can eat, because 70% of all antibiotics used across the entire world are being given to animals. Are being given to animals who are kept in these places because profit, greed, demand, and the same corporate mentality is going on here, you see. So it's not just our environment, it's not just the things we buy, it's not just the food we eat. Well, I don't eat it. I don't eat that crap because I wouldn't touch it with a barge pole. If they were giving it away free in the supermarkets, I wouldn't touch it. It's not just the fish that we eat, because the fish now in the oceans, a lot of plastic are being found in the stomach of fish. It's the whole shebang. It's the whole issue that can be summed up really in the state of these two buckets. It makes me feel very angry, not frightened. I'm not frightened, because there's no point in being frightened, but I am angry, and it's something that we all need to be cognizant of, you know, and act upon. And you know, people say, oh, one person doesn't make a difference. Absolute and utter rubbish. And yes, this is a rant. The story of two buckets is a rant. I mean, gosh, you know, so what a metaphor for everything that's going wrong. Now I've got a wee bit more to do on my archie. I've just got to balance it out there on that side, take a little bit more off, and that's going to really just grow like Billy-O now. And regain its shape very quickly. So this side's finished, and this side just needs a wee bit more pruning. So, yeah, the story of 2 buckets. I think that, I mean, I was actually of a mind that plastic had a use, you know, because you could use it and use it and use it and use it. But this stuff here, this is a disgrace. And I bought this within the EU. The EU should test plastics. And if they're not to a certain standard, they should not be allowed to be imported. But it looks like we don't have any protection. And it's down to us to start making very informed choices. Very informed choices. I bought this one, by the way, up in, oh no, let me just think. One of the big stores. It could have been Pennies, or it could have been Asda, or it could have been one of the kind of stores locally. But anyway, this has been imported into the EU. It hasn't been made in the EU. It's been imported into the EU, and it is substandard. We should not have to keep buying and buying and buying the same product which is supposed to last. Why not a lifetime or more? I mean, this stuff doesn't go away. If it's not going to go away, then let's have it that we can use it and use it and use it and pass it on. Anyway, so endeth the rant for today. But I mean, seriously, folks, this problem has got to be called out for what it is. We are being mightily abused. And I mean, like, Mother Earth will go on, but our habitat is being completely wrecked by corporate greed. And we should stop supporting that. Your thoughts, please. Blessings to you all.